I'll go now.
Order the Murray City Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, November 4th, 2021. It is 6:31 p.m. Present this evening are Commissioners Jake Pearson, Jeremy Lowry, Ned Hacker, Lisa Malkiewicz, Travis Ney, and I am Maren Patterson, the chair. Excused is Sue Wilson tonight. From staff, we have Jared Hall and Zachary Smallwood and Bryant Farnsworth with us. We will start with our business items. We have our approval of the minutes from the October 7th meeting. Have all the commissioners had an opportunity to review the minutes? Yes. Were there any changes or corrections? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion that the Planning Commission approve the commission meeting minutes from October 7th, 2021.
Is there a second?
Can I second that?
Perfect. Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Then we'll move on to conflict of interest. Do any of the commissioners have a conflict of interest with the agenda items tonight? No. Neither do I. And agenda item number 3, our approval of findings of facts and conclusions for Kareem Auto. Has everyone had a chance to review those findings of fact?
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve them?
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the finding of fact for Kareem Auto conditional use permit as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll move on then to our agenda item number 4, final subdivision approval for the Murray Heights PUD. Is the applicant with us? Great. We'll have our presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Chair. As you said, this is a final subdivision approval for 5448 South, 700 West, the Murray Heights subdivision. It's located just south of 5400 South and a little bit west of 7th West. It's in the RM15 zone, which allows up to 12 units per acre as a base density. Couple photos of the site as it exists today. So this is the final subdivision plat. There are 31 units located or proposed for this PUD. The Planning Commission granted a planned unit development and conditional use permit and preliminary subdivision approval back in September. And this is just moving forward on to final subdivision approval. So nothing has really changed here. Back when we had our initial, during the preliminary, there was a request to remove some of the parking spaces right here. That's been updated on the plans. Otherwise, there's not much to this. The unit types has stayed the same. A mix of 2 with a roof balcony and 3 with a roof balcony, located sporadically throughout the site. I kind of included the floor plans again just for you guys to see. So really, that we're recommending that the Planning Commission grant final subdivision approval. We did talk briefly in the staff review meeting that about the fencing. I thought it was in the actual conditional use permit that was issued, but it doesn't look like it was there. It is in the minutes. I do know that. So we will get that corrected. But if the commission feels like they would need to put that back into these conditions, we're more than happy to do that. So any questions from staff at this point? Okay.
Great. If we could have the applicant. Thanks for being with us.
Evening, can you hear me? Evening, Planning Commission. Brian Prince with Ivory Development. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions for the applicant? I'm sure you've had a chance to review the conditions for final subdivision approval.
Yes.
Yeah. And you'll be able to comply with all of those.
Yes, I did. I've talked to a few of the neighbors I've gotten to know through some of the on-site meetings we had this summer. And Rochelle White, who is a neighbor that's kind of been the representative for the neighborhood next door to the south, called me this week with a question about the fencing, because at the PUD and preliminary approval, the decision was made it could be at 6 or up to 8 feet. Just so you know, and I told Rochelle, our plan is to do an 8-foot fence, privacy fence, along that south side, adjacent to the existing subdivision.
Great.
Was she the? May I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Was she the only neighbor that you talked to about that fencing?
Yes.
Or maybe the better question is, what does the rest of the neighborhood? Do you know what the rest of the neighborhood would like?
Rochelle led me to believe that she talked to her neighbors, those that I had met with on site a few times this summer, and everybody was of the consensus they wanted an 8-foot. An 8-foot structure, and that's what we plan to do.
And what kind of fence would you put in? A vinyl fence or a
No,
block
it'll
fence?
likely be a precast concrete material, or a if it was vinyl, it would be a wood grain vinyl. But it's likely it's solid surface, like a split face block or a precast concrete material. And on those, with certain designs, they obviously come in a standard 6-foot. You can have an extra panel up top to get to that 8-foot.
Yeah. And we talked about in the staff meeting that the way we had added it as a condition, it said up to, in case there were neighbors that didn't all want an 8-foot fence. But it sounds like that you've talked to them and that's what they want. So.
And the one thing that this is, I guess, more for Jared and Zach, on the design, one kind of design consideration is the plan is to place that wall right up against that private lane, because if you don't and you kind of have it off, it's a kind of a maintenance nightmare because weeds grow up and you don't want to have a mow strip. And so that'll be right up against kind of a monolithic design right up against the top back of that curb. So maybe that's
Okay.
a little too into the weeds, but yeah, that is the plan.
Great. Thank you so much. Any other questions?
Yeah, with your monument sign, what type of materials will you be using on the monument sign?
That's a great question. This is random, but I'm going to throw it as an example. Has anybody seen oh my gosh, the across from Salt Lake County buildings on State Street, the jewelry? O.C. Tanner. Thank you, Jared. Have you seen that monument? They've got it's like a precast concrete that has the lap siding panel look, and it kind of, and they built the grade around it so it kind of rises up. We saw that and really liked that element. So it'll be obviously a smaller scale than that. That O.C. Tanner is a good example of what we envision there. We did include the lighting in the design. It's a low wattage light that will light up, won't impact the neighbors behind it. It's intended to give it kind of a consistent look with the architecture we will build in there, and is kind of bulletproof. We want it to last forever.
Awesome.
So.
Great.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I will now open the meeting for public comment regarding this item. If anyone would like to speak to this agenda item, they can do so. Seeing none, I will close the public comment period and bring back for further discussion or a motion.
Just to humor me, can we go back to the site plan? No, that's just a
didn't-
staff recommendation. That one's great. That's great. Okay, so we're talking about with the fencing, just so I'm 100% clear, on the south side of the property, it will go directly up against the private alley, so that there won't be any lawn or anything there.
That is correct. So on the south side, it would be right up against the south property line. One thing that staff is aware of that this doesn't really show accurately is the neighborhood on that south side. They've put fencing in as they've gone over the years, and
It's
so it's
staggered and
It kind of
yeah,
it's
yeah.
a hodgepodge deal, and yeah, you see that there, but there's not any encroachment that's significant. I mean, max it's like 8 to 12 inches, and so there may be some places where it veers a little bit, as far as right up against that private lane, but we'll keep as close as
Yeah,
we can.
no,
So it'll run from 7th back off of a line of sight of 7th West all the way to the back and wrap around the corner. And then we are still contemplating the fencing material along the north side in between the UDOT right of way. We envision like a wrought iron fence to maintain those views. Rochelle thinks that the neighbor thinks that the noise will be problematic, and encourage that we do a solid surface first sound attenuation, and we're looking at that. But that is the fencing plan for now. And then along 7th West will be open,
Yeah.
because as you can see in the plan, we've got units and walk pedestrian connectivity to 7th West.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can we go back to the conditions? And then, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion. One more slide forward. I have to
did.
read it.
It's not updating. Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I'll steal one.
There we go.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that Planning Commission grant final subdivision approval to the Murray Heights PUD subdivision on the property address 5448 South 700 West, subject to conditions 1 through 7, with the addition of a condition number 8 that says that they shall install fencing along the south side of the project.
I have a motion by Commissioner Ney to grant a final subdivision approval for the Murray Heights PUD subdivision at the property address 5448 South 7th West, with the 7 conditions and the addition of the 8th condition. Is there any discussion on that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second by Commissioner Lowry. We can take a vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. So that is approved. Good luck. Good luck with your project. All right, we'll move on to our agenda item number 5, some training for the Planning Commission.
Just going to get out of Bryant's way and let him begin.
Weren't sure in what order would be going. At least I wasn't. So, annually, our office typically gives a Open and Public Meeting Training Act. So the act in state law requires that training be given once a year to each public body, and that includes not just city councils, but any board or commission that the city has. So it's something that we get to do quite a bit. And I know that I've given to this group at least a few times an open and public meetings training. And GL has given that prior to me. I know Commissioner Lowry and Pearson, I think this would probably be your first training, but I thought I'd do it a little different this time. Instead of hearing me drone on, I thought we'd see how well this training has been absorbed in the past.
Uh-oh.
And I think that you
So we have a pass.
the
Is
new
what you're saying.
commissioner, you can chime in.
Can we close the door then?
I'm sorry.
Should we close the door just for privacy? I'm sorry.
We're a team, right? Individuals.
It's not individual.
Oh.
I had considered making this a big game and teams, but I thought that might be a little unprofessional.
Next year.
Okay, next year. But you both might know some of the reasons or some of these anyway, just from being around and a citizen. So
Wait, do we need to be citizens to serve on this?
you got me.
Sorry, I'll stop now.
So although our office gives the training, who's really responsible to ensure that a public body gets the open and public meetings training each year?
Is it the chair of the public body?
It is the chair of the public
Whoa.
body.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
So
Glad
it
you're here.
is-
We're ahead.
So if we had a year where Jared wasn't on top of getting us involved, it'd be the chair's job to get after him or to contact our office to get this training done. So
And what's the jail sentence for not having that done? Oh,
Oh,
okay.
sad.
Well, at this point.
A lot of pressure.
What anymore?
It's true.
we could jump right to the enforcement if that's what is what's a penalty for a violation of the act?
Hmm, I want to know.
Is this
That-
saying in
this-
our paper?
Class B misdemeanor.
It is a Class B misdemeanor to
I do
knowingly
not have an answer.
or
sheet.
intentionally
He's just gonna
violate
have
or
to-
aid or abet in the violation of the Open and Public Meetings Act.
Okay.
So simple negligence, forgetting to do it, forgetting to have the training or forgetting something, without proving that it's knowing and intentional, it probably would not rise to the level of a Class B misdemeanor, but that's probably the worst it could be. There are also other penalties. So if there were a violation, the action that is taken, a decision or a vote, could be voided by a court, meaning you'd get to look at all that again and go through the proper process, and the city could be they could rule that the city gets to pay attorney's fees for the person that brings a claim against the city. So those are a few of the consequences for not following the act.
And what are the consequences of a Class B?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so a Class B misdemeanor could mean up to 6 months in jail
Oh my.
Wow.
or a fine of, I want to say, around $1,000 plus surcharges or both. So that's,
And as little as a $25 fine.
yeah,
Yeah.
it runs the gamut.
Yeah.
I mean, when I used to prosecute, we have to tell everybody what the potential penalties are, and often for the more, the smaller offenses, you're not looking at thousands of dollars. Others you are. So, what is the reason that we have an Open and Public Meeting Act? What's the public policy? Give you a little help.
The people's business should be transparent.
I think you're
Exactly.
I can read.
Yeah, so we should be able to see what our government's doing, and that is at all levels, not just the city council, but I would say here with the planning and zoning, it's one of the more consequential boards and commissions. You all make decisions that are very that affect people with regards to their rights, their property, and with the community at large. So it's not inconsequential, but the public also has a right to see how business is done in other boards, the arts board, the history board, the Parks and Rec board, what recommendations they're making to the mayor as far as what direction they'd like to go. And just to see how the business is done. It's their right, and why they have these sunshine laws for both open meetings and for open records. What is a meeting?
A gathering of the elected or appointed, a quorum of the elected or appointed members of the body.
Okay. Anything else?
Probably has to allow for public comment or an opportunity for the public to air their grievances.
Right.
I think that, I mean, it could be in multiple formats. I mean, it could be in person, telephone, electronic means. Is that right?
Yeah. So we've experienced probably at least a year, if not more, of some of those type of meetings where they were through electronic format. They could be telephonic, depending on the situation. But it's not simply a gathering. It's got to be with the intent to do the public's business. So if you're discussing issues within your jurisdiction, if you're meeting to hear the public comment, to present to the public an item, or hear their comments. If you are all together, more a quorum, and you're at a ribbon cutting, is that a public meeting?
No.
Only if we're discussing something that would be on our agenda.
Yeah. So chance meetings and social gatherings are not technically meetings under the Act, but if it devolves into discussing things that may come before you, then that's where you run the risk of messing with the requirements of the Act. All right. Doing pretty well here. Probably don't need to ask, but what's a quorum?
Simple majority.
Yeah, majority.
Right.
Not even majority.
Well, I think it is a simple majority, unless it's spelled out in the bylaws of the organization that it's something other than that.
Right. The default is the simple majority of all the members of the board or commission. And I don't know that there's too many in the city level that require more than that.
So we're not a quorum. We don't have a quorum. We can't conduct business if there's a
Correct.
quorum for us.
You need 4. Yeah.
Can I ask a question about that?
course.
In the case we have, let's say 4 commissioners show up and we're voting on something, if one of those, so we 4 vote yes, 1 votes no, does that pass or no? Yes. So is it a majority of the quorum that is
That's
present?
Mm.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
If it's on a vote like that.
And in the case of a tie where we would have an even number, then it does not pass, and can it be revoted at that point?
Don't remember the bylaws, but essentially, yeah, a tie vote would equal
A
not
nothing.
passing, right?
A nothing. So it's not a no or a yes. Is that correct?
Right.
The motion fails. Okay, I see. So nothing happened. The motion didn't happen, so you could make another motion.
Yes.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
or can you choose to not make another motion in that scenario?
Well,
I know the city council can just let things die on the vine. Do we? Well, I don't think they should. I don't think they should either, but yeah.
Right. You would, I mean, you would like to come back with another
Even
with
if it
another
was
motion.
continuing,
Yeah. I mean, that's
you would continue that item.
yeah, and I think that's the difficult thing about this board is that, or commission, is that you have to act on the agenda items before you, and you could, after a tie vote or a motion failing, could just let it sit there, but that would have the effect of it failing, and so. Right.
city council notwithstanding, we won't react.
Right, because there's consequences of something, their rights being violated if something just doesn't get voted on, right?
Yeah,
So,
many of you didn't endure a Tim Tingy lecture, but he got us to vote on motions.
So I have a question, Brian,
Yes.
kind of related to this. So for our commission, 4 is a quorum.
Correct.
So what about when 3 of us go out for lunch or dinner with or without our spouses and talk business? It's not a quorum. However, I think there's a lot of frowning upon that. And or not even being together physically versus phone call or even extended email and text messaging.
Right. So you're right. Technically, 3 would not be a quorum. If you're going out and discussing something that should be coming here, that can cause definite problems. I mean, even if you were to say, well, that doesn't violate the letter of the law, it certainly violates the spirit of the law.
Mhm.
Other states have passed more explicit regulations regarding this. In fact, just last year, California included this in the materials. They went so far as their state assembly to prohibit board members or council members from commenting or even hitting likes on other commissioners' social media pages, because they felt it was a violation of the principle that you deliberate in public. You deliberate the public's business in public. If you have 3 of you meeting for lunch, talking about things that are going to come before you or that could feasibly come before you, you run a risk of doing that. And we see issues with that just because of due process. You have the due process of the applicants that may come before you, having you deliberate in public and having the information then. You also have members of the public who may want to comment, and may have serious problems if there's a number, even if it's not a quorum, discussing an issue amongst themselves in private. And so that's something that we would discourage. 3 getting together for a social, for a lunch, that's great. But once the business talks comes into it, we think that's where there are difficulties.
Can we clarify that just a little bit though? Because deliberating an issue coming up,
Right.
that's a concern. But sitting down together and talking about what we think about density, that's not a specific project. That's a difference, right? If there's 2 of us or 3 of us, still not a quorum, stay in the parking lot expressing our thoughts on density, not a project. Is it
Or-
still a concern?
Or even what if it's a project that was in the past? So what if it's not one that is going to, so it's the one from today. We go to lunch, 2 of you guys that want to hang out, we talk about how cool that we go past the OC Tanner sign for example.
Mhm.
That will look really cool in the Murray in that Ivory development. Did we just do something wrong doing that?
No. So that has come before you. There's been a final decision on it, and I don't see a problem with discussing that at all.
I think
The density gets really gray because I think generally, that typically shouldn't be a problem, but like I said, some states have come down with explicit rules. Utah has not, and it's a really gray area. I mean, when do you cross that line of we're talking about something within our jurisdiction that could affect how we treat applications coming before us? I wish I could give you a bright line answer. Too much of what we say often is it depends, but
Can I ask I'm going to ask a specific scenario then.
Mhm.
Let's say that I'm reading the minute, or I'm reading what's going to come before us, and I want to know Travis's opinion. I call him on the phone and ask it. Is that inappropriate?
it's an
I
interesting
understand that's
question.
probably not legally, because we're not a quorum. I think legally we could do that, but do you feel it's inappropriate for us to do that?
We would discourage it. I don't know that I could say affirmatively that's way inappropriate. I think that's where laws in other states are trending, is that getting other members' opinions before a meeting is not deliberating in public, and even though it's not a quorum. So, like, I couldn't say, Jake, that's totally inappropriate for you to do that.
Sure.
I could say we would discourage it probably. We would like everything as formal as possible. It's a hard position where we can't say it's against the law. You can't do it. It's obviously
Yeah, okay.
unethical. It's not obviously unethical. It's not preferred, and I don't think the public would. I think they may have difficulty if wind comes of lots of those types of conversations going on. And
So it sounds like what you're saying, if I can summarize in my words, it sounds like you're saying is that anything that's going to be come in front of this body, any comments, any questions should be here on record, and that should and then once a decision's made and it's a final decision, at that point, if we want to talk to other commissioners about it, sounds good.
yeah, essentially, I think it's a good summary.
And it's my understanding that that's why you wouldn't want us like the Bullion, for example. The neighborhood was getting together and meeting with the developer and expressing a lot of their opinions and comments and things before. That's not an appropriate place for us to go, because you're getting a whole bunch of information that the rest of the commission wouldn't be getting and discussing at the same time, right? Like that wouldn't be a
Right. That's
I
why
think
we
would
would have
be-
discouraged that. Again, that's one of those where we couldn't say,
But even if we had
No, that
3
was
people, if
wrong
you
for you
had
to
4
go,
people
but-
that went to a neighborhood meeting like that, right? Like someone could say you had a quorum there, you got public comment, right? So
Deliberating, right, you
it
could.
gets, like, to your point, it gets very gray.
right, yeah.
So
yeah.
the air on the,
Tell me if I'm wrong here, though. The problem isn't the information that we're gathering at that place, correct? I mean, I get information you guys
Right.
don't get because I
No.
research stuff in my packet, right? It's not necessarily I have more information than the other commissioners do.
Right.
It's just that it's the fact that we're all in one place, and then it could be discussed at the
Right,
Bullion project,
right.
right?
The,
It's that, yeah, it's, I believe the main focus of it is the deliberation, the sharing of ideas, or the positions amongst the commission itself, not necessarily that you're getting information from the public. I mean, somebody from the public could email, call you, and
mhm.
So then
And I
That's their
believe we
opinion,
had
you would-
2 council members at that meeting.
the bullion meeting?
Council's so different though, I think, than
Council's
this.
it's a little. They're just the
I
one.
believe there
I'm
was 2.
unfamiliar with who was all there,
I
but
believe.
So
I don't
it,
know
you're,
for
but
sure,
are you
as
saying?
far as I'm aware, because I didn't go, there was 2.
But what you're saying, if we sat in that bullion meeting and didn't deliberate or participate, just listened, is that different, or is that still splitting hairs? I didn't go. I'm just.
yeah. I mean, I think it would be a little different, but it could. It's very gray, and
maybe
it's not clear cut right now. And
maybe delineate why it would be different for a city council member versus us, where they're an elected official and we're appointed, and kind of the different roles. And maybe we're supposed to be viewed as we're impartial. Is that fair?
in some with some issues, yeah. I mean, I think in some with some items, you're kind of like a quasi judicial board. You make final decisions on certain agenda items. Others, you make strong recommendations, and I think that's. And you brought up also that the council's elected. They kind of are the voice of the people, and they go out and mingle, see what their constituents want, share ideas with them. But even then, if they were, there were to be 2, 3, 4 of them at a public meeting, and they start deliberating, discussing the issue, that could be a violation of the act. It's again, I think the main thrust is that telegraphing positions, discussing positions amongst the council or the commission or the board itself, not necessarily that you're getting ideas from the public or hearing something from them. I think that's where the main issue is with that.
I think there's a lot of gray areas. The last open house that I think we had was at the
That's 4800 South property.
and I know almost certainly there were at least 4 of us there, maybe 4 or 5 of us, and we didn't huddle together in the corner and decide something. However, I'm relatively certain we all talked to each other at some point in time, and the benefits or the drawbacks of a particular project or aspect of a project. And I look at that, and was I there as a planning commissioner? I didn't sign into the meeting as a planning commissioner. I signed in as a resident, and have an opinion about a particular project that, in this case, it was in my neighborhood too, but I don't know.
Was
Lots
that a
of
public
lots
me-
of
was that
gray
a public-
areas is what
Was
I'm
that a
saying.
public meeting though?
It
was
kind of met
noticed,
some of
right?
those guidelines of.
Good point. Good point.
Whereas a neighborhood meeting that they're meeting on a project, not everyone, it's not publicly advertised that. Mm, mm-hmm.
We had felt like it was a good idea. We could have said, look, if you guys want to have a neighborhood meeting, let's have we'll schedule a public meeting with the planning commission that's not the application's not an application, it's just a work meeting.
Advertised.
Do that. We felt like it was
Noticed.
clear that because it was a zone change, not a project.
Mm.
Let me go back to something you said just a moment ago.
Sure.
That the council represents the people. I do not represent the people of District 4. Is that a fair statement? I represent myself as a citizen of the city.
Huh.
You stumped him.
You wouldn't represent them in the same way. I mean, you're put on a board, and many of is there any at large?
There are at large.
There's two at
Two at large, and then you are picked from districts, but right, you don't represent that particular council district. You're put on the board by the mayor. Council approves that, but you're put on the board as board members to deliberate, and as a citizen board member, not necessarily that you're the representative and whatever the population in that district wants, that's how you have to vote. You're using your own judgment to, and council doesn't do that either, but you're put on the board by the mayor to use your judgment to think, well, what is the best land use action for the city with whatever item comes up. So yeah, I'd say it's a little bit different than the council, where they're elected, they use their own judgment too. They do whatever they feel is best for the city, but they're directly responsible to the voters ultimately, who say, wow, we really love what they've done, and keep them in, or get upset and they vote them out. And you sort of serve at the pleasure of the mayor. And
So my question is then, are we representing the mayor? Are we representing the city? Or are we representing what we think is best for the citizens of the city?
Well, yeah.
that's an interesting.
We're representing the legal ordinances of
Yeah,
the city,
exactly.
right? Right.
Lots of cities, everybody. We have that geographic requirement. Two of you are at large, the rest of you are from different districts. And when we had this discussion before, years ago, we talked about removing that council district area requirement, just making all of it at large.
And the council voted.
Council decided they wanted to keep you in districts because and their thinking wasn't that you would represent the people of that district, represent them the same way the council did. Their thinking was that forced the geographic diversity because the city is diverse. And so if you came from those areas, you would be representing the people of that area, but you would have an understanding of that area that the rest of the commission might lack, and so you would bring that to the table as a commission. So it's to force some knowledge of the individual areas of the city, or the more individual areas.
But it's not, my district doesn't want more density, and so I'm voting against these projects that are coming into where I live.
You have an understanding of that area, so
Right.
if you needed to, you could try to
Here are the concerns of, right.
So when you're representing, when you say representing people in Murray, representing Murray writ large, all of it, as a body.
Well-
Bringing to that representation your unique knowledge of your area that you live in and your experiences.
But I would maybe, I'm curious everyone's opinion on this, but I don't view myself as a representative. What I view, and in fact, I hate, with a capital H, the recommendations to the city council, where because I really do hate it because I was not elected by the public. I was appointed by the mayor, which means that in my view, I haven't earned the right to. Well, I'm just happy the city council it does those. I'd be more comfortable if we didn't even touch them. But I view our role as an umpire in terms of we're calling balls and strikes. Does this project meet the ordinances? Does it meet the zoning requirements? So I view myself a bit of a dispassionate administrator almost, in terms of, does this meet this definition of the land use? And it's a much broader group that's going to decide a master plan. I mean, look, if I was king for a day, I'd do a lot of things differently. But I'm not, and so that's kind of what I view my role as. More of a, my job is to ensure that the are the ordinances being met. There's room to talk about those different things, but I don't view myself as a representative at all, actually.
But
Am I wrong?
Jeremy, aren't we every meeting deciding that we need a wall for the citizens of the development we just looked at, or last meeting where we voted on a, recommending a change, which I know you
Which
don't
I
like that,
hate
but that's
those
what
ones.
we did.
Yeah.
And, you voted yes or no, and I voted yes or no for whatever reason, but we weren't looking at, a set of criteria of whether we should do the zone change or not, or if we should put a wall and require it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point is your point is inherently we bring our own tastes and preferences and bias, maybe.
That's
And
fair.
I don't dispute that I have my own tastes and preferences and strong biases.
I'm just saying, I agree with the administration part. I think most of what we do is that, right? We're making sure that
Which I'm a lot more
that
comfortable
everything's, checked off the list.
with. Right.
But a lot of what we do, especially when we start telling people, hey, we want you to build a wall, we want you to put more trees or whatever, whatever crazy things we've done or not done,
So
those aren't checklists, right?
right.
Yeah.
So
Or
I'll-
changing land uses.
so I'll
Exactly.
I'll
yeah.
touch on this a little bit. So you guys play a dual role.
Yep.
So yes, you are appointed by the mayor. However, the city council is the one that by state law creates the planning commission. So you are doing the city council's business as it applies to land use applications. So even though you're not approving like zone changes and stuff, that can only be done by the legislative body. However, administrative actions can be done by the land use authority, which is dictated by the city council. So at least in my opinion, you guys are working partly as representatives of the council and partly by the mayor as well. At least that's how I see it.
I'm going to start asking for a lot more trees then.
There you go. Ask for trees.
I'm so glad you framed it that way, Zach, because that's what when you were saying that you don't like that we forward things onto the city council, we are looking at all these individual things very closely, and then they're looking at our. They've asked us to do this, right? And then they're looking at our recommendation. So there is a good purpose that we are recommending one way or another to the city councilors. It's not, why did we do that? They could have just looked at it.
That's a good
We
explanation.
are the land use.
Mhm.
We're looking at all those things. They're looking at everything.
But when
And
it
so
comes,
we're sending their
We're into the
recommendations.
details, is what you're saying.
yeah, when it comes to like conditional use permits, that's balls and strikes.
Mhm.
They either met the letter of the law
Or
or
they
they
didn't.
didn't, and that's it. But the other portion, yeah.
I think too, if it was just a checklist, then we would probably just have staff do that, and should never come before us. If there's no opinion, then, I mean, if it was just, is this 1 + 1 = 2? Yes, check it off. Then why have a commission?
There's always some opinion, but sometimes we're also restricted to where our opinion can be interjected into the. For
Yeah,
example,
I agree.
the what do they call it now? The Kmart parking lot. I don't like the density there. I don't like it when we voted for it. I wish it was smaller. It's going to directly affect me. But I voted in favor for it because I can't change what I don't like and do like in the zoning. It met the requirements for the zoning in that area, right? And I think it's a good area to do the things they're doing there. I just didn't like the density.
That village multi 10, 12.
Well, that's why the village
2
happened,
acre.
because of Kmart. Then we
Mhm.
came back and said, what should we do? And we got other areas of mixed
I'm
use.
with you on that one, but we can talk about it because we're in session. So,
But I say
Yeah.
that because I voted in favor for it. The record shows I was in favor for it, but I'm not completely. But I feel like that's where it's gray. I don't know.
I think too, a lot of time, I mean, I know we're getting off topic, but I think a lot of times I voted yes on something, even though I didn't agree with it, because, I might think that, this is a property owner that owns this land and they
Mm.
should be able to do with it, even
Mhm.
though I might not want them to do a car lot or whatever it is.
But it's
You know,
their
they're-
right
it's-
as a property
They're a
owner.
property owner.
Mhm.
Unless we have a valid reason to tell them no, we probably should let them do it.
That's being respectful of the ordinance and people around me, even though I don't like the idea. It's done well, done respectfully, done following the ordinance.
So I mean, this brings up an interesting question, and and like we're humans, right? So, I'm interested in everybody's here opinion on density. I'm interested in everyone's, I'm interested in everyone's opinion. We obviously are all on this commission because we have we have some we you know whether we're you know planning people by profession or you know or is interested in it. We're obviously interested in these topics. So I mean, you know, Ned, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I never have asked you because I didn't know I didn't know how I could, but you know, how can we in a what's the appropriate way for me to say, you know, Jake, what's your opinion on density? You know, Lisa, what's your opinion on density? How do I do that without, you know, a class B misdemeanor charge?
I can take that.
Oh,
Is
okay.
that okay?
Sure.
I think the appropriate way for you to do that would be to tell us as a commission that you want to have scheduled for the commission to discuss
A conversation.
density. That you want to have a discussion about density in an upcoming meeting and for us to prepare or whatever. And we'll ask you for a few more details, but that's how you do it so that we could all talk about it together.
So
The-
not on
And
Facebook.
Jake,
Not on Facebook. Yeah,
Okay.
please avoid that. An agenda. Yeah, we put it on
Yeah.
an agenda. Planning
As a
commission
discussion.
discussion
And
of
notice
density.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
so and Jared,
Absolutely.
would that be a pre-meeting discussion?
We could do it. We could do it pre-meeting or post-meeting. I wouldn't do it in the middle of a bunch of discussion about commission business like subdivisions.
I
and
wish we
conditional
would have done it
uses,
last
but-
week. Last meeting.
But we could schedule it the way we scheduled training tonight. We just schedule a discussion item, density, at the end of the meeting. As long as the public has a chance to know, I think, as long as the public knows that we're going to be talking about density, not with respect to a certain project or a certain area of the city or whatever,
Come
but
on, then.
density generally, that's cool. We just have to schedule it. Other than that, you're stuck with just those conversations in the parking lot after that aren't too gray. And you can always call us and say casually, "Hey, Jared, what does so and so think about density?" And I won't tell you because that would be inappropriate. But you can ask.
What would that look like?
I'll talk to you about density all day.
So
Anytime you
when
want.
we schedule that on the agenda to discuss density, would it be an open public meeting?
It would be
Yeah.
a public. It would
Or
be
it
here.
It'd be a public meeting, but it
We
would
don't have to
not be
open
a
it.
public hearing.
You
They
wouldn't
wouldn't
say
have to
You
comment.
don't have to say
No,
comments
you
on it.
don't.
You can
You
just talk about
you
it.
just do it like on a night like tonight when like no
Yeah.
one's going to be here and
Slow agenda night. We
But
could
nights
put
like
that.
this don't happen very often.
That's true. So
But they could, because we've canceled meetings before, but they could be kept on the schedule and have something like this.
Brian, because it kind of got brought up, will you talk about Murray Citizens Facebook and like, are there guidelines that
I'm aware there's a Murray
We
Citizens
need-
Facebook page.
I think we're all aware of?
Yeah. What do you want?
I mean, I guess are
Yeah.
there guidelines like we should not be commenting on it? We should not be like don't join Bullion 8 whatever the address is. You know what I'm saying? Like
Instagram, right?
Everything Instagram. No, it's
what are the
it's one where
parameters?
I'd love there to be a hard and fast rule. I could say no, do not join any Facebook page that's talking about issues in the city, but I really can't. You're all citizens, probably interested in knowing what's going on certain pages or areas of the city, and we would just recommend being careful about commenting,
Especially on future projects.
especially on a foreseeable project that could come or an area that could be coming up for a rezone or whatnot. So it's a gray area. I said I'd love to say, oh, state law says you can't, but it doesn't. It's gray.
So I can keep putting likes on anytime someone puts a Planet Citizen article on, and I can agree with it and say yes.
Right. But if Ned puts that article up and you hit, the like, I don't know, then it's starting to
Okay.
get.
So
He shares it with
correct
the
me
whole
if I'm
commission.
wrong, Brian, but if they wanted to, if the commission felt strongly about one way or another, they could amend their bylaws to say that they don't want that the commission should not write.
Sure.
Should
Yeah, they
not
could.
Is there
that.
language like that in our bylaws currently? Of like
I don't
No.
believe so.
No.
I believe the
Probably
bylaws
how
Right,
old
right,
are our
right.
bylaws?
focus mainly on the
Christmas
Old.
meeting structure and the information, like with the deadlines for it to get to you.
Is
from the
that
public, but
something like we should look at? I mean, I just feel like
It's probably a good idea.
It saved my
The-
likes for something else.
if you want
so.
an agenda, something to discuss in a work meeting and
Mhm.
discuss
But-
some of those issues, the bylaws, that would be an appropriate thing.
Yeah, that could be a big discussion because that
Yeah.
could be I mean, I've looked at this site and read everything, but I've never ever commented, never even liked, just read.
Me neither, because I've been
Is that,
too
are
afraid.
we
Yeah,
gonna
I
say
know.
that's
I'm
negative
like,
too?
I
don't
can't
know.
even.
Personally, on Midvale does have it in our bylaws
We
that
do.
we're not
Seems like
supposed to
some guidance
engage
might
in social media.
be helpful.
We're not supposed to engage in social media. So
Again, what's engage? Me
Oh,
reading
It means
or-
comment or
commenting,
like or share
commenting or
or
liking, because
Yeah, 'cause
they
we're reading
You can
they
snoop all
You
you
can
want.
read everything.
Yeah.
yeah,
right?
read all you want, but
You can report
So
when they
at least
release
in
our address.
Midvales, they've asked us not to do that.
So in Midvales, is it you're not supposed to comment or like any posts regarding Midvale projects?
projects,
That's a good point, because there's a lot on there about hairdressers and where to get.
right? Mostly projects, or if it
Land
becomes
use.
something political, land usey, something like that,
But
we're
post-
not
post-
supposed to.
Post hearing that project,
Then it's a different story.
then it's a different story, right?
Yes.
Just don't gloat, probably.
Don't gloat. Yeah, it's a good way to save you getting egg on your
Have your-
face. Is
yeah.
what it is.
Don't make a manifesto about why you voted.
I mean, I think you run I understand that legally we, probably shouldn't be commenting, but at some point you're running the risk of limiting free speech on what a citizen, even if they sit on a commission, can do. I mean, I think we all have seen comments by Donald Trump that, that he obviously, posted whatever he wanted, which I'm not saying that's correct, but
I agree, Jake. I think I was just going to say that is by sitting on this commission, you lose some of your rights as a Murray citizen.
About talking about land use.
Yeah, yes, I think so. I mean, you can, but it's back to a pretty gray area.
Yeah.
It's an issue of public interest, probably. And I think that yes, for 4 years we had a guy that wasn't too interested in advancing that. It seemed like with some of his social media comments, but I would bet. I don't know about you guys, but there's so often those are the types of things that the second you put it out there, you wish you could pull it back. And I don't know. It's not much of a temptation because I don't have any social media other than LinkedIn, so not that big of a deal for me. But I think that what I've thought, because I have people who will approach me in social situations, and what I've always been able to say is any comments any comments I'll say in the meeting, and then after the meeting I'm happy to talk to you and clarify. But most people everyone's been pretty cool about that.
respectful of it,
And I think it's also one of those things that face to face people are there's a lot of keyboard heroes, so face to face they won't say nearly what they'll say on social media.
So
I like that response.
So let me ask a question then, because Jeremy just said something that.
Keyboard
So-
heroes, sorry.
Well, no, it wasn't that. So my neighbor comes up to me and says, "Hey, Jake, the Bullion project, blah 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 blah." Right. So is it inappropriate for me to discuss with my neighbor that project at all prior to the meeting?
Well, that was kind of my question too. 4800 South project. I'm always trying to be conscientious of this, but now I think, well, I talked to other residents what I thought about what was going on in the project and what we need downtown while I was standing there. Was that bad?
I mean,
let's
define
what
good
I-
and bad,
Yes, and
right?
again, so much of this, there's differences of opinion amongst attorneys, amongst different commissions, between the way cities do things. Our office tends to be pretty cautious, but it is a reality that people want to talk to the planning commission members when they see them and voice their opinions or ask for yours.
No,
I
think-
guess my safety net is it was an open meeting, but the neighbor walking up to you isn't an open meeting.
Right.
Yeah, and what I've obviously never done is I've never said, "Oh yeah, I'm voting no on that" or "yes" on that, right? I've never done that because I make my decision up, after I hear all the public comment. But I've obviously talked to people about issues and listened to what they have to say, and at times I'm probably offering my opinion on some of that stuff.
Yeah. It's a balance, and I I appreciate it, the difficulty of it. I don't know where to say that the line is to be drawn when you do hear from people, you talk to people. I mean, it's some attorneys have no problem with their commissions being out and almost in the same sense as the council, representing the people and talking with them about any of the issues. I think for our purposes, the main thing is that deliberation, if it's not being done in public.
So if we're gathering data, people are sharing with us what they think and opinion, and we're not deliberating, not saying, I agree completely, or nope, I think you're an idiot. If we're just, oh, well, that's interesting, then that's, and there's just one of us with our neighbors or 2 of us talking in the parking lot.
Thanks for the information.
Right.
Appreciate it.
You can still agree with them and come to this commission and still vote no. I mean,
Well, like
depending
my
on what the,
example of
yeah.
Kmart, I don't like the density, and I vote yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Or, I mean,
So
I understand. I understand your point. Thanks for talking to me.
Sure, hopefully that somewhat help. I just don't.
I just don't be so
Know what to,
friendly. I mean, that's.
I was
like-
going to
that's
say,
not-
I don't
that's
have
not
any
so
friends, so
friendly.
it's not an issue for me.
Well, I was going to say, I haven't been invited to a single lunch. What are you guys talking about? Going to lunch together and calling each other before? Where? Well, hold on.
I think we need a planning meeting in Hawaii. Just
So if
saying.
it's further away, it's okay.
Well, no, well, it'll be a public meeting. Just be in Hawaii.
We
and the
noticed
city will have to
everyone.
pay for us to get there.
Okay. Well, on that note, that there's a number of other points to open meetings, but I think that always tends to be these gray areas tend to be the areas that are most interesting to talk about. And frankly, those are the ones that I think are most concerning to the commission, because while there are requirements for notice agenda, opportunity for people to participate, and minutes and recordings, you're not necessarily in the details of doing any of that. Staff really takes care of the notices, the agendas, recording the meetings, getting the minutes typed. You are involved, obviously, in having people participate and making sure that you do hear. But
who gets the misdemeanor when Susan forgets to post the meetings
She never
announcement 24 hours or whatever it is a week before, and then forgets to post the minutes?
That's the vice
after
chair's
the
role,
meeting.
isn't it?
Well, and I asked very seriously, because we watch that in our office. We have the same rules, and once in a while I said, "Oh, I forgot to post the meeting minutes." Well, just do it, and ask forgiveness later. I mean,
yeah, we would want to
you forget sometimes. The only one that really does matter is if there's something in the meeting agenda that's posted, or if there's something missing from it. You can't just bring it into the meeting and vote on it. It's got to be in the agenda that's posted to the state's website.
Exactly.
So,
Right. You
Anyway.
can't have
But
an
is-
item come up later and vote on it.
I still want to know who gets that misdemeanor. The chair.
You got to prove it's knowing and intentional.
Can I ask a question about the agenda? I guess not the agenda, but, well, I don't know. What is the packet? So last meeting, we got the packet prior to it being posted publicly. Does that have to coincide technically, or it just has to be posted publicly at some point?
The packet itself, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the packet itself does not have to be posted publicly. We have to make it
see.
available publicly. If someone
Mhm.
came to the
Yeah.
office and asked for it,
They could
we give them
see
a copy.
it.
Okay.
We have just decided as a group, as a city, that we want to make that
Mm.
available to everybody. So we post
Okay.
it on the website.
And I like that transparency.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's
just trying to err on that side of saying,
I see.
we're not trying to hide anything from anybody.
Yeah.
So
we get
just
that.
the agenda has to be posted. The package we're just providing that as a
Packet,
convenience
yeah,
for the citizens.
courtesy.
Okay.
We just want to make sure we get that perception that you hear from the
I'd
public
say-
sometimes you guys are trying to do things in secret.
Yes,
We're really
I
not.
know.
We write
Yeah.
this stuff because it's what we think. We don't give you opinions we don't really have. Lots of times we would love to, like, you don't know how many times I've wanted to, like, on a project, we got an application, we're writing the report, and I think I want to just poll everybody.
This would be
I wanna
such
call
a
you all
great
individually and say,
project.
what
for
would you
this.
think if I said to do this, and get an idea of how much support there is for something? But we roll the dice, take our chances, and see what we'll get when we get in front of you, because that's the gig. So
I will say when I worked for Salt Lake City, when we would do Board of Adjustment meetings, I would be finishing my packets 10 minutes before the meeting was to go in. The citizens had no opportunity to review anything other than the agenda and then to sit in on the meeting.
And I'll say also the Murray City Planning Commission packets anyway is fairly new. That just started back
putting it on the website.
yeah, late 2018,
Oh.
early 2019.
For
So
that, it was just you had to come to
after.
the city and ask for it.
I see.
That's a good practice.
Yeah, I like it.
So, sorry, I'm back to wanting to solicit get people's opinion on things. So, do we ask the chair to put in an agenda item, or how do we do that?
Technically, yeah, it would be asking the chair and she
Madam
would get
Chair, I would
Yeah.
request.
Staff, when we have an opportunity.
I'd request a conversation
Can we vote on this?
amongst the commission on the density for the village the village
Right now?
no mixed use. Sorry, it was the village mixed use.
Okay. Staff is aware that when we have the opportunity to discuss that, we will.
Can I ask a question about
Sorry,
that? So let's say we get together, we talk about the VMU or whatever it's called. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, you got it right.
VMU. Okay. And we all decide we love it or hate it or whatever we decide.
Doesn't matter.
Well, you can
Doesn't
decide
matter?
whatever you want. The ordinance is written,
Exactly, that's what
right?
I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
But then we could-
then could we say, hey, we want to what?
Redress the ordinance.
And
We could have a motion for
Susan's
staff to
texting
bring
up
it to city council to
Then,
discuss.
then at the end of that meeting, you would say, well, maybe we want to direct staff to go back and bring something to us as a formal text amendment, and we would do
With
that.
these
Okay.
specific changes, right?
the commission though itself cannot propose a change.
We can propose a change. We can't. but we
You
can't
could, but you
ratify
got a
it.
staff
And we
to
have
do
to
it
have
for you.
staff
So you
just
just
to write it up.
Yeah.
make us
I'm
do
not
it.
writing the ordinance.
Yeah. You don't have to do that. We have to do that for you.
Okay.
You're not getting paid to do that. You make us do that. We'll
We
bring
are
it
getting
back to you.
Not that.
Not enough to do
Like-
that.
Wait, you guys aren't getting the big check I got?
Did you earn that
Oh,
last
you're the
meeting?
one who got all the $15,000.
It's $40 just for the public's
Yeah.
knowledge.
$40.
$40.
Travis is sweating now. Wait, they're gonna think we're gonna
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Someone.
I'd say we earn that $40 about half the time.
you do have to make difficult decisions, and
That's true.
it's admirable that you do make the decisions and with the public right here, and all the differing opinions that there are in the public. So appreciate that. And if you have any other questions about open and public meetings,
I do have a
included
question.
my email and phone number. So
Can I just ask another question?
When it
I
comes
know we
up.
need to move on,
Mhm.
but if we have a request, someone comes to the city and says, hey, I want to get all the public records regarding the Bullion project, let's say. Is that, I mean, can they make that broad of a request and then the city has to go compile
Yes.
all that together? Okay.
right under the open records laws, they could make that request.
So they don't have
We
to
would
specify.
You have a reasonable amount of time to provide it, though, right?
We
Mhm.
do. So the default is 10 days, but when there's a vast amount of records, we look at
Can
what
extend
are
it.
we going to have to do to pull whatever they're asking for. There's also a requirement under open records that the request be for
That purpose.
have at least a level of specificity. So
Okay.
you
that's-
could argue like anything related to the Bullion project. I guess that's narrow enough. And
Yeah, I've actually, I mean, when I was in college, I did an internship in Washington D.C. and I actually was it was just a long time ago before when we went and got copies of stuff, and I saw a clerk deny somebody, and it was an attorney, and he dropped the open records, he dropped that, and she just said, I'm sorry, but there's no specific cause or what is the
it's like you have to describe the record with reasonable specificity. I
Right.
think
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
language is.
Exactly. And he was asking for what would have amounted. She said it was unreasonable because it would have required like 4 or 5 hours worth of like photocopying back in the day. She said,
Sure.
Sorry, it's unreasonable and it's not specific enough. Come back and I'll do that.
When I was chair once upon a time, there was a grandma request that came through, and I had to like provide access to emails that I had as the chair with staff about the particular project.
I was going to ask you
So-
because, yeah, just recently some things have happened about emails, right? In Salt Lake County or
So you should retain our
was that?
emails. I deleted all
There's a school district that had some issues
the
with
school
it.
district.
School district.
School
Yep.
district that had, and that is something to be cognizant of, as well as these meetings, but written communications, documents that are produced. So obviously we've talked about the packets being public records, and any member of the public that wants to come and get that can, and we would give that to them before the meeting, even before we were posting them. But when there is either a lawsuit or an issue that may involve written communications or emails, yeah, we sometimes have had to deal with that with people, even with personal phones, personal emails, that if they're discussing an issue that's city related, that's in controversy, then yeah, that is covered by grandma, even if it's not on a murray.utah.gov email address. So it doesn't happen too often where members of boards have that, but it happens.
You're saying emails between commissioners about specific projects could then later,
Right.
if there was, because I think that's what happened in that one. People made a formal complaint, and filed a lawsuit, and so then they went back and got their emails.
I don't remember the specifics of that case,
I
but
don't remember which
I think that that's one way they come out. Emails with staff obviously would be subject to grandma on both ends, but definitely because staff's involved. So that's just a reminder that when you are communicating, make it professional, and just remember that it's something that someone very likely could have access to.
Yeah, that's what this says. Don't write it down if you don't need to. Email is not a private conversation. It's a transcript.
And we've had that with lawsuits. We've had to go through stacks and stacks of printed out emails to see what's
So
to be provided. And
say this also. So this is more of when you write an email, even if you write it to commissioner or the staff, you better write it professionally. Here it says don't exaggerate. Just know that whatever you say on your phone, or what you write on paper, or what you write in a text, is available forever.
It doesn't convey tone.
Can we get you to can we get you to do like a assemblies for junior high school and high school kids?
This is
They get the-
professional. There's plenty of
They get those
garbage
assemblies.
that come from
Sure.
a lot of professionals. And it's, I don't know if they've ever been told about where their emails go. Their emails don't go away. They are there forever, and they're subject to any kind of grandma. And it's embarrassing to a lot of people when it happens, because it'll happen.
Once you send it, you have to assume it's forwarded.
That's right.
You just have to.
For the rest of the world. And your private conversation, not so private
Not
anymore.
at all. No, it's not. Not at all private.
And I say that because it's all gray. I mean, there are lots of gray areas, but just be cautious, because when you press the button, it's gone. And if you regret it, then it's your fault.
Jeremy's point, I think our generation, the last generation realized that. Younger kids don't. Everything they do is typing in phone and
That's true.
I think it's a great. This is sorry. This is like an aside. I think what I found is I typically I write an email, then I actually will read it to myself out loud. It helps with a lot of a lot of grammar. And then think about it. Like if it's at all controversial, just go, let us sit.
Save it in drafts and walk away.
Exactly. And actually, what I also do is I don't put the address in until I'm ready to. I'm really sure.
So the way I do that,
Yeah.
I put my address in it
That's
yeah.
until you're ready to push
nice.
the send to the world.
Yeah.
There's been many times I've written an email and I've just clicked delete. I'm done.
Sometimes it helps
Even
with
if it's
writing.
really long, I'm like, delete.
But it makes you feel better, right? Like it
It
does
does,
make you
yeah.
feel better. You get it out.
Right. Well, thank you.
See, these
Yeah.
people are
Thank
cool. I
you,
want to hang
Brian.
out with them, but I can't because we're on the planning commission.
Hey,
It's on.
Yeah.
It's
Social
a public
setting.
meeting.
You just can't talk about.
Don't
can
talk
we
about that.
establish a bat signal with you, Bryant?
What,
like-
when
like
you
if-
need help?
If you see us getting in trouble, like you can just give us a little.
Time out. Time out.
Because occasionally I see a little wince.
The panic in
Occasionally,
your
but I
eyes.
really haven't seen anything that's too,
I think it would be good though if.
Well, we could always ask
think,
him. I
Can't
mean,
we, as a commission,
Yeah.
couldn't we say, look, if legal has
Yeah.
a comment, we'd be glad to have you raise your hand and we could call you up.
But
But
we've
I
called
do-
him up before.
Yeah, we've called him up
yeah,
before.
we have. For
And, but
sure.
I also like the bat signal because when legal has a comment, their comment is on record and now legally
Yeah.
documented too. So
Right.
maybe just do that.
Yeah.
There's a lot, but I can't say it.
Bryant has the world's best and most interesting ties. So to give him the signal, just pretend you're straightening your tie. If you're wearing one, Joe, if you're not, just pretend you got
Hey,
one.
you know what?
don't
Right,
want
just
to
do
institute
that.
something with
Just
secret
do
signs
this.
because that
Just do
again,
this.
That's
what do I
right.
have to
Right.
open in public
Right.
meeting.
I really think we do.
That means there's a lot more than what's coming out of your mouth, right? There's a lot more.
I just know when I talked to GL about this, he said, there's a lot of times we have something we want to say, but we're not going to unless,
Unless
you call us
specifically
up.
call him up, right?
But if it's something important, I think, at least for me, I'd rather have you just come up and tell us, hey, you guys are screwing this
I
up
think-
or something.
I think part of it's the role of the chair. I mean, anytime it sounds like it's not right or it sounds like we're treading on some territory maybe we need to be careful with, it's real easy as chair to say, hey,
Yeah.
Brian, why don't you come give us an opinion on that? And then he can come up and say what he needs to say. And then
Seems like everything's on you. I'm sorry.
And well, we did that a couple meetings ago.
Yeah, yeah,
We're like, okay, Brian, help us sort this out.
No, but
Just wait, Jeremy. January's coming up, and we're electing new chairs.
Can
I thought the vice chair just automatically moved into it.
Nope,
Nope.
nope, nope.
nope,
They're
it's
new
usually
every
the-
year.
It's usually the newest board member. that
Nice.
just-
after a year,
Yeah,
after-
Jeremy's
That's
going to
Jake,
be the
actually.
new
Throw you
chair.
in.
That's Jake. That's
Jeremy.
Jake. No, it's Jake then.
could you serve? Can you serve consecutively or look?
Because she really wants to. So let's just do it. It's been working well.
Oh, yeah.
I would have to look at the ordinance. I don't recall.
And you did a great job, Maren.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, you did an excellent job.
Thank you.
Especially with
Oh.
all like the other remote stuff and Zoom
Yeah, that
calls
was
and
tough.
like that's not fun.
That was tricky for
Yeah.
sure.
The part that I particularly like is that you were at most of the meetings, so the vice chair didn't have to chair very many.
Speaking of which, Vice Chair, next meeting I will not be at. Okay. Did you want to do your training, Jared? Do you want to
No,
save
I will hold. That was
Okay.
a
Yeah.
great discussion.
Yeah.
And I'll hold my general plan structure and application discussion for another training another time.
Yeah.
We'll tack it on to the end of the next short meeting so we get a couple hours in for the year like we should.
Can I ask a question before we finish?
Absolutely.
One of the questions that I talked to GL a little bit about this, but one of the things we often do as a commission is we have these people come before us and we tack on these requirements. And we've often said, and I've heard it said, this is the only time we can do this. And I just want to talk about that because I believe, and again, that's why I'm asking the question, if a property is not in compliance with code, the city has a method to make that property owner comply with the code as long as they're not grandfathered in because they
Mhm.
built their property prior.
Yeah, that's true.
So, Yeah, so code
But our
enforcement.
current process is someone has to complain and then code enforcement.
I
goes out and
agree. I
checks.
agree. The current process is someone has to complain about it, but I just wanted to make sure I understood that properly because this is not the only time we have to go and enforce a code.
But they're reluctant to act.
It's not the only time,
I-
but it's a
I agree.
convenient
No, I
way
agree.
of
I just
enforcing
know
it.
it's been said multiple times that this is our only time to get them to put sprinklers in, at the parking lot where that's not true. It is a good time. Maybe we could enforce it easily.
It's the usual time, maybe. Is
Yeah.
A
Zach,
better
you
way
had
to say
something?
it.
Yeah, so I wanted to specifically, so we'll talk about this property right here.
Can I scowl?
You can.
Okay, I'm
Um,
scowling.
So, for example, because it was
Hey,
brought
can I
up.
just I can just like actually make a complaint right now?
No. You can go on the website, and there's a
There's
little
a-
link at the
there's
bottom
a
that says
web-
report
there's
a
anonymous
concern.
website.
Report a concern.
To report a
citizen here.
concern.
Okay, so for example, I believe Jared had this item where we required this landscaping. I don't have a laser pointer on Google Maps, so so for this example, where this would be the only time that we could get landscaping in that area
Sure.
because they have existed and currently exist, and a new permitted use could come in here, and we still wouldn't require them to bring up to code for that landscaping or the sidewalk improvements or anything like that if it was a permitted use. Being that it's a conditional use, we can condition it to come up to code and do that. So as a permitted use, we can't really institute those kind of things because they're allowed to go.
But if they have,
But even
just
if they're in violation of the ordinance anywhere in the city,
Right, because
somebody could
technically this would
report
be-
them.
This would technically be a non-conforming non-conforming site because, I mean, I can't say for certain, but obviously it existed prior to us requiring the landscaping ordinance or having the landscaping ordinance put into place. So you could make that argument anyway.
So what you're saying is even if somebody made a complaint, we
Right.
would just send out our enforcement officer and they would say, well, I can't enforce it because they're grandfathered.
Correct.
So, but just so I'm clear, but if they were required to have landscaping and a sidewalk there, and they went and ripped out the sidewalk and the landscaping, then we can go
Then
and
we could do
say
it.
you need to put back the landscaping.
So
and
if
the
this
sidewalk.
if this car parts dealer ripped out their sidewalk there and put parking,
Right.
we would be able to
because
tell
they
them.
were required to put that in
Right.
when they built this property.
And leave that one up for a second because that was a permitted use. Auto parts. This is CD zoning. You're out of the MCCD now. That's the advanced auto parts, right?
Yeah.
They came in for a site plan review with us. It didn't come to the planning commission. It didn't require a planning commission review, but we still got to require those things, even though it was just staff, because it was a site plan review. It was a significant enough change. There was no building there. It was a new building. We can get the stuff then. We didn't have to say, well, the shack that was there before selling chicken gizzards or whatever it was didn't have sidewalk, so you still don't have to have sidewalk on your new building. We get it then.
Yeah.
So it's not technically it's not the only time. It's typically when we're able to do it the best. Yeah.
But can I applaud you here on this particular project for something? And that's that you went ahead and applied a lot of the MCCD standards as far as sidewalk width here on this project when you weren't required to do so. And you got the landowner to do that because it is a gateway right into Fire Clay.
Right.
And so they saw an opportunity to put additional conditions on someone or make requests of them and got them to do it. And so that's one that you guys need to be applauded for.
They were willing to do it. I can't remember the specifics, but it was better for them too. So it worked out.
Is it really common that we have, I mean, I know we have a lot of people out of compliance, but how many of them are grandfathered and, they're,
I wish I had a
I
number
mean,
for you. I'm
yeah,
sorry. I
no,
can't.
it's
There's
just-
tons
yeah.
that are out of compliance.
but
It's
how many
not-
would be able, my understanding is our chance to bring them up to code for being out of compliance is when they're changing
when they're changing uses or
a
when they,
use or something like that, because otherwise they're kind of allowed to be in their old ordinance.
Yeah, they get to continue into that non-conforming status, whatever
That's the
aspect
word
is
I was looking
non-conforming,
for.
unless the change they're asking for, whether it's coming to you or just coming to us,
Mhm.
the change they're asking for is significant enough to need site plan review by us or by you, or a conditional use from you. Then we get to ask for all those non-conforming things to be brought up to code. Those are the times we get to do it.
So,
But otherwise they can
do we
exist
get to ask for
in
them, or
compliance.
they are required to do them.
We get to ask for them.
So-
we make them do
So
it.
if someone comes and redevelops a property,
Mhm.
they don't have to comply with the
Yeah,
current.
they got to comply with code.
code?
We wouldn't
Okay.
approve it without it. And there are
So,
times.
so they have to comply. We don't
Those are
just
different
get to do
situations.
it.
No,
Yeah, they
our,
take-
yeah.
I mean, I
Our
know-
code
Those are two
says that
different
within reason
situations.
we bring up to come up
Okay.
to standards.
Yeah.
We have some flexibility within that,
Okay.
depending. And like as the division manager, I have some latitude to decide when you have to have a site plan review or not. I can exempt somebody who's not really making a significant change from that site plan requirement, or I can bring it on. The division can decide we're going to do it, no matter how small the change is. It depends. We have some standards to review, but there's those boxes to check, but there is that element of judgment about whether we're checking them or not.
Sure.
And so there's that.
Can I ask a random question? And
Uh-huh.
this is an appeals question. So we made a decision, property very close to there, where we said even though they didn't meet the $5,000 criteria, they should put in a sidewalk there.
Yeah.
And they appealed that decision, went to the hearing officer, and the hearing officer overturned that decision.
Yes.
Do I have standing
Appeal?
if I appealed the hearing officer's decision? I know that's a weird question, and I have no intention of doing it, but technically, do I have standing because I was involved in it, or do I not because I wasn't the affected entity?
That's a great question. You're definitely aggrieved.
I am aggrieved.
He was aggrieved at the time too.
Have the aggrieved box checked. I'm not sure about the rest of it.
We're just not on the commission.
No, on the
She
commission.
was.
On the commission.
Yeah. Who I think made that additional.
That's a good
I may have made that suggestion and disagreed with Mr. Harland. I respect his
Oh, it
opinion,
was
but disagree with him.
I would have to review the ordinance a little bit closer. I don't
Hmm.
recall off the top of my head. Seems like an aggrieved party, the applicant, or the city could appeal, but
He's not.
I
He's
don't-
not
But I'm
not the city at that
he's,
point.
He's not.
Right.
He's not.
Right.
He's not a principal though.
right. So I would have to look. I don't know right off the top of my head.
I'll take 2,000 words.
Get back to him.
Just
when you
kidding. If you ever have spare time to think about it, I'd love an answer. I don't know what I have no desire to be involved, but
He just really wanted that. sidewalk.
funnier things have happened, I'm sure, in lawsuits. So
Okay. Any further business?
I don't think so. Zach, anything that I don't believe so. No.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn with the stated time?
motion to adjourn at 7:58 p.m.
Second.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you so much, Bryant. That was great training.